Hi, this is Rachel Goldman Fernandez from y'all here with me on WGD Weekly with Steven the Scum.
Hey there, all you savages. Welcome back to Wrestling's Glory Days Weekly Podcast, WGD Weekly with Steven the Scum. My name is Steven. With me is the Scum, and I feel kind of bad for him. He's over there in the corner all tied in a knot after a long week of DDP yoga, so I guess all I have to say about that, considering who we have this week on our show, is damn.
Damn, indeed, my friend. Sorry that I was a little delayed coming in there. I was still on the heels of that DDP yoga workout. I had to pull my ankle back from around the backside of my head here. I was stuck for a few minutes, but, doing a few breathing exercises, and here I am right back with you. Always a pleasure to be on the air with you, my longtime tag team partner, Steve. Always a pleasure to be doing business with the fellas over at Wrestling's Glory Days on Facebook, bringing the best in old school classic wrestling, and always a pleasure this week, as you said, the man who coined that infamous one word, the former WCW World Champion and WWE Hall of Famer, Ron Simmons, with us this week, Steve. What a thrill to have him on the show.
Oh, absolutely, Scum. Pretty much did great at everything he touched. Tag team wrestling with Butch Reed and Bradshaw, two great tag teams with Doom and the APA, of course. Great singles career. We talked about WCW champion. I can't wait to pick his brain. Hear all about his football career all the way through, going through getting trained by Hiro Matsuda and so forth. So we're going to get to that very, very quickly, Scum. But I had a chance to sign up for the WWE Network this week. I know you did as well, maybe 2 weeks ago. So it's had a week or so to get up and running, and I've been very, very satisfied with the content. So much on there, Scum. I know you've been glued to it too.
Absolutely. I nothing but thumbs up over here from the Scum on the WWE Network. Was happy to sign up for it. Great content. Glad to see all that old school, some of those old Madison Square Garden shows. I watched the other day an old Maple Leaf Garden show from 1984 that started out with a young Bret Hart in the ring, and just fantastic stuff to have at your fingertips there. A lot of great classic stuff with those old pay-per-views from WCW and WWE with our guest tonight, Ron Simmons. Steve, and we're looking forward to getting into it here with him on the program tonight. Hear some of his classic stories from his days in the business. I'm sure we'll touch on another of our all-time favorites and his partner, John Bradshaw Layfield. Also looking forward, Steve, to Ron will be up in our area. We'll be able to meet him personally at the Clayton Fitness Center up here near where I live, Clayton, North Carolina. It's March 29th. Ron is going to be appearing as part of the Ivan Koloff annual tag team tournament here with the NCWA, which Ron will be here along with our past guest Kevin Sullivan, a couple of upcoming guests, Ricky Morton, Shane Douglas will be there, the legendary Thunderbolt Patterson, and obviously Ivan Koloff, whose namesake is for the tournament. So looking forward to meeting Ron there. If you're in the area, if you're a North Carolina fan of the show, WGD Weekly, pop out to Clayton Fitness on March 29th. Bring the whole family for a great night of wrestling entertainment.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Definitely come down to Clayton Fitness Center on March 29th. Come see all the great talent that's going to be there for the Ivan Koloff tournament. Of course, Ron Simmons, Ivan Koloff himself, Kevin Sullivan, Shane Douglas, a whole array of stars are going to be there. Even Steven the Scum are going to be there. So come on down. We'll have a cold one, watch some good matches. But Scum, we're on the eve of having our interview here with Ron Simmons, and you want to talk about a guy, we have this conversation on our show all the time. It's great, but this guy is tougher than shit, and I definitely wouldn't want to ask him the old question, is it fake? And when you look at Ron Simmons' overall body of work, he's an interesting guy in the sense that he's a very good pro wrestler. He's not so much a technical guy, and I wouldn't call him an out-and-outright brawler, but he really has some talent in the ring, a really good hand in the ring, isn't he?
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself, my friend. I mean, just a believable guy that, like you said, you wouldn't want to be dropping many ill-advised questions on him. No-nonsense kind of guy. We've seen in the APA days a guy that can be entertaining, a guy that can, we've seen with the catchphrase that you so fondly spit out a few minutes ago here, that guy who can have some fun and have some laughs, but when it comes time for business, I think it's safe to say that Ron Simmons is all business, my friend.
You know it coming. As we're talking here, the red light is lit up. We got Ron Simmons. We're going to be right back after this.
Hey, yo, say hello to the bad guy, Scott Hall. and you're listening to WGD Weekly. Brother.
All right, Scum Nation, we are back, and it's that time. It's interview time. Every week we have a great guest from the glory days of professional wrestling on, and this week is certainly no different. WWE Hall of Famer, member of the legendary tag teams Doom and the Acolytes, and of course the first ever African-American World Heavyweight Champion. We got him right here. Ron Simmons is with us. Ron, thanks for joining us. How's it going tonight?
I'm doing all right, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It seems as of late that we've had a tremendous amount of ex-football players come on our show, but none of your caliber. Ron, Hall of Fame career at Florida State University for Bobby Bowden. You were an All-American status there at Florida State, which is a great honor. Get drafted into the NFL and, of course, played in the USFL for a short period of time. And then the next time we saw Ron Simmons, it was in the wrestling ring. So take us back, if you could. Talk to us a little bit about how and why you went to Florida State, what it was like playing professional football, and then how you transitioned from pro football to the wrestling ring.
Well, let's get a little bit back further than that. Well, I'm a Georgia native, and I played high school football in Middle Georgia and Warner Robins, Georgia there, or Warner Robins High School there, and played well there, managed to get a scholarship, offers from, just about, I guess, anywhere I wanted to go at that time, And little known Florida State at that time had no football program at all, in which I really didn't have them on the radar for the college that I might even consider going to. Being from Middle Georgia, I was already picked to go to University of Georgia. But I had a good close friend of mine that I worked for in high school at a battery and alternator shop, and I promised him that I would just give Florida State a look because he was a good friend of Bobby Bowden and he had also played for him. So I owed him that much. And I did all of my business, and I saved Florida State for last because I really didn't consider going there. So that was just to be a favor to him. I went down, paid the college a visit, and man, to my surprise, it was just about everything I imagined I'd wanted to. I saw myself playing for a man that I could trust, that was going to shoot straight with me and not blow smoke at me like the other colleges did, wanted to redshirt me, sit back and learn from the older guys. I had been accustomed to playing football right away, and that's what Coach Bowden had told me, that if you come out here and you can beat out the other guys, no matter if they're a senior, junior, whatever, and if you manage to do that, you can play right away. And that's exactly what happened, and I liked the accommodations, and I liked because it wasn't only 3 hours away from home. And that's really basically how I did wind up at Florida State. And I got drafted by the Cleveland Browns there in the 4th pick in the 6th round. Went there, had a brief stint with them before I got hurt. Healed up some. Went to Canada, played 2 years there. Came back after the USFL that was forming the league then. And so I went down and played 3 years with Steve Spurrier in the USFL. And that is, in a nutshell, my football career.
That's a pretty crazy story. So in your career, you've played with two of Florida's most famous coaches in Steve Spurrier and Bobby Bowden. So tell me, Ron, how did you get into the world of wrestling?
Well, this is really, and this is the honest truth. I had taken a job after the USFL had folded, right? I wanted to get into voiceover and doing radio and perhaps even into sports casting and doing some commentator. So in the meantime, I had to make ends meet. So I took a job at working at a detention center there in Tampa, Florida. There, and I did not know that Hiro Matsuda, a training facility for professional wrestling, was right behind the detention at that time. He also had trained Lex Luger and another guy, good friends of mine by the name of Ed the Bull Gantler, and a whole host of others, at that time. And so I was out in the field with a lot of some of the detainees, I would like to say, there some of the kids doing recreation with them. He saw me out there with the kids, I was still in great shape, it was in Florida, so obviously I had a tank top on, and he walked over to me, and he was looking at me, and at first, I'm like, oh, man, wait a minute, this guy's kind of strange, what's going on here, right? But he walked up to me, and he said, well, hey, you look good, you ever consider being a professional wrestler? I'm like, no way, man, that's not now, I just finished playing football, and I want to give my body a rest, and of course, at that time, wasn't making any money. So when he threw the money up in my face, and I was like, well, hold on a minute. Let's see. Where do you say I can make this amount of money in this short period of time, right? And so that really caught my attention. And besides the fact that I'd always been a big admirer of Tony Atlas, guys like that, Dusty Rhodes, and I'd been a follower of professional wrestling all along, but it wasn't right then until that point that it hit me that, well, this is my opportunity maybe to slide into something that is still more physical and that's demanding, in which I'm used to having played football. And I went from there, trained with him in Tampa, and went to Japan a lot with him and trained under him for a few years. And I started at Florida Championship Wrestling, and I kept going from there.
Wow, that's great stuff to hear. The transition from the football field to the ring made the right choice, if you don't mind me saying so. So where a lot of our listeners would remember after those Florida days would be when you were up in the Mid-Atlantic area, like Crockett Promotions, NWA, where you would form a team with Butch Reed. You know, at first you were managed by Woman, and then eventually Teddy Long as Doom. First you guys had the masks on, and, the talent.
That was as if no one knew who we were, right?
the talent that you had and that Butch had, obviously, made you a top team and eventually world champions. What are your recollections of that Doom idea, at first with the masks and how that came about, and then your thoughts of the time working with Butch, Woman, and Teddy, and even some of the classic pairings that you guys had faced off in those NWA days?
Oh, well, I've been very fortunate when it came to even with having people. First of all, even with me being a single wrestler, I've had great guys that have mentored me, but I've been very fortunate to have great tag team partners. Beginning with Butch. It can't get any better because we match each other in size and ability. He also being a former football player, we almost were mistaken almost for twins everywhere we went, and his philosophy and as far as the way he approached the business was just similar to mine, and that automatically made us a clique. We got along very well on the road. We shared a lot of things in common, and then to boost that a little bit more, when Woman was with us, myself with her, hey, you got a recipe there for just about anybody can be, entertained with that, and then later comes along Teddy, and during some of those times when we were under the mask, and that's a funny thing when people approach you with that. They say, well, remember when you all had the mask on, and then the Steiner brothers, you had the mask and they were to unmask you. Well, at that time, there was only like 5 black guys that was in the WCW and NWA, so it wasn't like anybody. It was too much of a secret, but I think people might have been a little bit too afraid to say, hey, Ron, I know that's you under the mask, right? But never yet, though, we did pull it off, man, and I couldn't ask for a better partner. I'm really grateful.
It's great that you mentioned facing off with the Steiner brothers. I was doing a little bit of research earlier, and those out there with the WWE Network, check out Capital Combat 90 with Doom versus the Steiners, and you'll see what we're talking about here at WGD Weekly. But we're going to move on to a singles run that you had right after Doom, and of course the inevitable program against Butch Reed during the breakup of Doom. You move on from there, and you move up the charts very, very quickly, and end up in a championship match against Vader in August of 1992 in Baltimore, Maryland. You were able to capture the World Heavyweight Championship, the first African-American to do so. So tell us from your perspective how important that moment was, being in the ring with Vader and winning the WCW World Championship, and what that effect was for the African-American community in the world of professional wrestling.
It out of everything that I've accomplished in professional wrestling, that without any doubt tops the list, because as I've stated before, man or woman, once we leave this earth, we want to be known or leave something behind that is good for mankind, period. And that, to me, was the best gift I could have given, not only to my race, but to any aspiring wrestler and anyone aspiring to do the best in anything that they can. But to me, and this being that it was professional wrestling, and then at that time, there wasn't many African Americans in the business then. And then for myself to come along and to be the one, and not setting out to be that trailblazer or the first person to wear the heavyweight belt, and it means a lot to me. To see the other guys like Booker T, Mark Henry, all of the guys to come after me and then to come up to me and say thank you, Ron, for inspiring me and opening the doors for me to get an opportunity to pursue my dream. that's what sums the whole 30 years of this business that I've been involved in the ring. That makes it all worthwhile.
Absolutely. Very well said. I mean, it's obvious that, like you said, there weren't necessarily that many African-American competitors at that point, and to be given that spot and the fans were so behind you. I mean, I remember as a fan what a great moment that was, that win over Vader, and then the run that ensued, which would actually lead me to the next question about some of the guys that you would work with, not only as world champion, but, you know, some later down the road when you eventually got to WWF, in addition to that WCW time, and some before that maybe you cross paths with even in the football days. So I wanted to get your take mainly on three guys that you worked with during that world title reign, and those would be Lex Luger, Cactus Jack, Mick Foley, and the man that you won the title from, Vader. You know, what were your experiences working with them, and, you know, what did that mean to your career at that time, and then with your interaction with them later on down the road, or even before in Luger's case?
Well, actually, you know, I played football with Lex Luger. He and I were on the Tampa Bay Bandits under Steve Spurrier there for 3 years. So we go back as far as competing against each other a little bit, you know, and being friends far back. But I mean, it was always like a challenge for he and I, because we've been competitors by nature in sports, not only football, but once we got into the ring, because that's just the way we are. And then for us to be in the ring competing against each other, that was just a little bit more icing on the cake, so to speak, transitioning from football into the professional wrestling world. And of course, I don't have to tell you what a physical specimen he was. So that was a challenge always for me when I entered into the ring with him, because he just made me better. And then now to go to the other extreme, when I speak of Mick Foley, you had to be willing to go in there and do whatever it takes. And I do mean whatever it takes, okay? Because you had no idea which way he was going to go. I mean, was he going to come in and was he going to mat wrestle you, or was he going to go up and through the stands and through the fans, you know, under the mat, or whatever way he wanted to go. But it was always, you know, something that you had to look forward to, you know, with like, in anticipation of which way am I going to have to go with Cactus, as I like to call him, refer to him as Cactus Jack, you know, or Mick Foley, as some others like to call him, you know, and it was always challenging, you know, because he took you to another level, and he took you to different ways and different arrays of wrestling, in which, you know, the audience seemed to you know, cater to, you know, because they like to know and see different things, and he provided that, you know, and it always made you better, because, you know, when you got in one-dimensional matches like bunkhouse matches, you know, or chairs, table letters and chairs, you know, after being in the ring with Cactus Jack, you know, hey, that gives you just that much more experience, you know. And then to go on to another one, which also just, I don't have to tell you about the world title match, and of course being there with Vader, you know, but we'd had matches previously before, like in Japan, before this had happened. And, you know, it was a challenge to be in with him, because he was a bigger guy, you know, than I was, you know, big, strong, physical guy, athletic, you know, because he had the quickness that I had never seen in a big man before. So that in itself that made it much more challenging to me when I got into the ring with him. But that night in Baltimore was even more special, because I had no idea that I was going to be thrown into the ring for that title that night. I came there with hopes of just, hey, I'm going to come out here and do my best, you know, at the mid-card level that I was working then. And then once I got there, and Bill Watts, and I want to thank him to this day for the opportunity that he gave me that night. And we literally put names in the hat, you know, and draw them out, and mine was drawn. And that's exactly how it went down, and we went from there. I was in the ring, and the next thing I know, I'm in the middle of the ring holding up the world title. And it was an unbelievable night, and it's something that I think about, I can promise you, once every month of my life since then.
That is an excellent story. And, of course, Bill Watts, a great wrestling mind now. The Scum has a question coming up for you about you going to WWE. But before that, you had a quick pit stop in the early days of ECW, late 94, early 95.
Right.
We wanted to just get your overall opinion on what you thought of that fledgling company at the time, and what you thought of working with Paul Heyman overall.
Oh, it was good. You know, Paul has a great mind for this business, you know. I mean, he's one of the guys that I'd always looked at and said, man, if he had ever had the physical abilities and the body for getting in the ring and doing this, he would have been great at it, because his tenacity as far as going toward the business and the way he approaches it is unmatched to any. But it was a lot of fun, and it was you know, like I had just mentioned before, it was along those lines of getting in the ring with Cactus Jack. But the only thing about that was their format all the time, and that was not my forte all of the time, because I wanted to also get in there and do professional wrestling as I had been trained, and not just using, you know, trash cans and tables and ladders, you know, and things of that nature. And there was a period of time where people were getting more edgy and wanted to see more gory and blood and things like that, and which didn't require, you know, too much of you doing technical wrestling at that time. But it was a brief stop for me, you know, to come in there and do something, you know, and it was a lot of fun to get in there with guys like Tommy Dreamer, you know, Taz and Sandman and a lot of other guys. And it was a lot of fun. And I have nothing but admiration for Paul Heyman and the ECW, and it did very well, and the people seemed to have enjoyed it. So it was a lot of fun for me.
Absolutely. You know, we're both fans of the ECW era there, and like you said, it was a brief stop before you moved up and on to bigger and better things in the WWF at the time. Well, Ron, when we get to this point in the interview, we get about halfway through. I usually try to get story out of our guests, a little kind of lighter side we look for, maybe a funny story or something. I call it the 3 R's, and the 3 R's stand for a rib, a riot, or a road story. And you can take your pick of which of the 3 R's, and if you had a funny story you could share with us on any of those topics, that would be great.
Well, I think I have one, and I like to share this one with a lot of people. This involved my partner, Bradshaw, and I mean, I don't have to, and I think everyone out there will attest to this. Probably, without a doubt, the best tag team partner that I've had, and I love him just like a brother, you know, and that's serious, okay? But it was he, myself, and Teddy Long, and we were traveling, I believe it was in Ohio, and we were giving Teddy, you know, a lot of slack because he was driving, and Bradshaw and I had a couple of beers, and I mean, we were pouring it on, you know, ribbing him, and it was snowing, man. You couldn't see in front of you. It was snowing that heavy. And so we were teasing him and ribbing him about, hey, get us there, you know, and all of this, just laying it on it, just being guys. So he gets pulled over by the cop, and now Bradshaw and I are a little tipsy, so we're still talking trash, you know. When the police officer comes up, he checks Teddy, you know, for being intoxicated. He passed that test and everything, so. And he gets back in the car. So now we are really landing on Teddy. Now, man, look, you're getting us in trouble. You're going to get us put in jail and all of this. So he slams on the brakes, stops the car, orders everybody to get out of the car. Orders everybody to get out of the car. Now, this is little Teddy Long. This is how mad he's got there, myself and Bradshaw, right? So we Bradshaw and I decided to accommodate him. So we just said, well, look, let's just appease him, man. Let's just step out of the car and just briefly get back in. So he got out of the car, and me being a little bit more tipsy than Bradshaw was, so he quickly dove back into the car, but I slipped and did not make it into the car, and I rolled into a ravine. So Teddy, thinking we're both in the car, he pulls off, and no idea that I'm still lying in the ditch. Now, and mind you, now you can't see in front of you because it's snowing just that hard. And so they're pulling off, and I'm thinking, well, okay, all right, now the rib's gone far enough. And I'm looking at the back of the car, and the tail lights seem to keep getting farther and farther away, and I can't no longer see them. I'm like, hey, hold on. This is not fun anymore. I'm sobering up real quick now. And it's like 15 degrees now, right? So, and I'm assuming, you know, Bradshaw is telling him, hey, Ron is back there, man. Turn around. So, and now 20 minutes go by. Now a half hour goes by. I mean, you can't see anything out there. I mean, at all. I'm freezing, and I'm covered in snow. Now they're searching for me. They cannot find me because I'm covered in snow, and the roads and trees and everything now is covered in snow. So thank God that I did have a lighter in my pocket from which we use to light the cigars and stuff on the show. So I had to make a fire on the side of the road in order for them to find me coming back. And that is how they found me about an hour later, man, once they turned around after they'd gotten down the road after me fumbling around in the snow. And to this day, man, we laugh about that all the time.
that is hilarious. I can picture, it's hard to picture, but how funny picturing Teddy Long, kind of telling you and Bradshaw, who again is one of both Steve and myself, both of you guys, we're big fans of the APA. So I can only imagine him, all bent out of shape and telling you guys, get out of the crowd.
Yeah, just imagine him. Just imagine him being as small as he is. You got to imagine how mad he had to be. To tell us folks just get out of the car.
Right.
But we rip him about that to this day, man. We have a lot of fun with it. But I wish I had the time to tell you a whole bunch of them. Maybe one day I'll write a book about them all.
Sure. Would love to read them. So we appreciate you sharing that with us. Moving along here in your career, your next stop would be up north to the WWF. We talked a minute ago what made me think about asking this question. Steve was saying he was watching the new WWE Network this week as it came out, and I had watched one of the roundtable things. They had a Mick Foley, who we just talked about, was on there. They were talking about different gimmicks that people had been given, and Mick told a story where he was saying he got nervous when you first came into the company because he had said that you told him the guy who had done his mask was working with you, and then he said, you pulled out the helmet, the gladiator helmet, when they had cut, the Farouk Assad initially. So, and then he said, I couldn't believe that they had given this helmet to Ron Simmons. He's so good. And so anyway, first off, how did the opportunity initially come about for you to go to work for the WWF? And how was that whole thing with the helmet and everything presented to you? And what were your thoughts initially when they gave that to you?
Oh, to take that a little further, this one might be even funnier than the one as far as when it comes to Teddy. But initially, I was when I got the call from Bruce Pritchard, Michael Hayes, when it came to working in the WWE, I was going back and forth to Japan at that time. So, and I got a call from Bruce Pritchard and Michael Hayes that Vince wanted to meet with me. And that's how that, first of all, became with me getting my start in the WWF at that time, right? And then, then to slide into meeting with Vince, and when we sat down, as you normally do when you go to his house, you're in awe. This is Vince McMahon. Oh, wow, I can't believe I'm here. That kind of thing, that was in the back of my mind. So we sat down and we started going over, things that we thought about how, I was going to be, presented to my gimmick and this thing of this nature. So he said, well, this is what I've sat down with my team, and we vision you as and see you as, and I'm, it's far from what I had in my mind, I might tell you, okay? Right. So he pulls the drawings out, and he says, I see you as this gladiator, this Spartan. So far I'm thinking, well, man, this is great, and I can get with that. And then he starts to show me more and more. Then he says, and this would be something like you'll be wearing, this helmet right here, it'll be made out of leather. At first, I'm looking at him, I'm waiting for him to laugh and to chuckle, because I'm laughing at this point, like, oh, man, this guy's got a good sense of humor. He's ribbing me, Right. So as I'm laughing and I look at his face and I'm like, oh, God, he's serious. And so I think immediately my face goes back to poker face, and then the only thing that come out of my mouth was that, oh, well, I think that's great. That's a fantastic thing. I think that's going to be the best thing that I've ever done. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I can't believe this. Okay? Right. But lo and behold, the thing of it was to get you out there, not giving you something to try to automatically get, cheap applause or anything from that. It's to make you learn how to get out there and give the people what they want, to make something that is not as approachable and as appeasing to people, make it work. And that really trained me in ways of learning what the people want and how to work the crowd and how to give them what they want in the ring. And at that time, I had no idea what he was doing, but that's what he does with a lot of guys, and that was one of the things that he did with me. And I managed to get out there and to give it some popularity and make it work. And so I learned a lot from that I took with me in all the other gimmicks that I did. It was a very learning experience for me. I had a lot of fun with it.
Well, it was terrific to see Ron Simmons in a WWE ring, that's for sure, regardless of character. So you get to the WWE and you start a program with Ahmed Johnson, which was extremely entertaining. I just got back into watching wrestling full time, and that was one of the feuds I kept my eye on for sure. So shortly thereafter, though, you found the Nation of Domination. You have Kama with you, of course, D'Lo Brown, and a young version of The Rock. So take us back, if you could, much like the question the Scum just asked, talk to us about why and how the Nation of Domination was initially formed in a time where factions started to becoming much more relevant. What was the purpose of the Farouk character in the Nation of Domination? And then from your perspective, talk to us a little bit about what you saw as The Rock matured and progressed into the superstar that he eventually became.
Right. Well, initially forming the group, it was just, it was going to be like a conglomerate or makeup of just different array of guys. We didn't want to try to, make it straight lined from a standpoint of being racist. It was going to be from a standpoint of me being just a dictatorship, being just a vicious leader of a faction or of a gang, as you want to put it, right? And it was just to be the most obnoxious, the most overbearing tyrant that there was, And as Farouk Assad actually was a former, the way back Egyptian king, it was a very unruly and a very tyrant. People hated him. So, and it was to take that and also with being a slightly edgy when it came to being bigotry, and to try to blend it in, and which a lot of that would come easy when you put it all together, because it's something that you don't have to rehearse when you come from similar backgrounds from which I've come from, and seen the things that I've seen. So a lot of that seemed to come very easy with me as time went on. But the whole thing with the nation was to keep it to the point to where it represented the people out, that are looking at this from a standpoint to where they can say, well, you know what, maybe the guy's right about that. There is somewhat of a racism in this form, in that fashion, but when you see a white guy like Crush come back and say the same thing, so then that kept that to the point of where it wasn't just one-dimensional or one race of people. It was just against the whole world that we were fighting for, and wanted to get under our rule. And then later on, to go back to then answer your question as far as with The Rock, they were having problems with him as far as with this style and his gimmick. They had him in this hula skirt. The thing wasn't working for him, and they needed to get him with someone and in something that was going to give him, the boost that he needed. And so they decided to wash him through the nation, and it was a good choice on their behalf, And I was more than willing, because people had, so many guys that did it for me, as far as giving me a start and helping me along the way. So when he came in with me, we sat down and talked about different ways to do the thing and the way to present himself. And, he came in, he managed to click with it, him having a background of a wrestling history in his family, so things came easy to him. It was just him finding his niche, and he seemed to find that when he got in with us, as far as his delivery on the microphone, talking, and he just took the format that he learned within the nation, and just took it to the next level. And the rest of it is history.
Absolutely. We just got a few more questions here for you. Really appreciate Ron Simmons joining us here tonight on WGD Weekly. Before I move on to the next question, got to ask real quick while we're on the rack. Any bad blood from the collegiate days there? Not often you get a Seminole working with a U of Miami guy.
Oh, yeah, man. Look, we had a lot of teasing going on with us. Normally what we would always do is that whenever Miami and Florida State were playing, we'd always have a bet that, hey, whoever loses the game, the one that loses the game has got to wear the Florida State jersey for that week. Okay?
Nice.
And that's what happened. I think he wore the jersey like once, and I think I might have had it a couple of times. Okay, and let me tell you, that's something that I tried to stay as hidden as much as possible whenever I was in, at the arena. I didn't want to walk around too much. Those were a couple of times I didn't want to get with my picture taken with that Hurricane jersey on, okay?
That's right.
But we had a lot of fun with it, back and forth with it, and even to this day, we still like to stay in touch and tease each other about that, man,
Sure. I figured I just had to ask, being a huge football fan as well. I just can't imagine Ron Simmons wanting to get a photo snapped in the green and orange.
Oh, yeah, and that's why I stayed back in the dressing room as much as possible. I did not want a photo like that going back and wrong by some of those fans, man. That's the last thing, That would be like me being caught in a Florida Gator jersey.
That's right. No doubt. All right. I had to ask there.
So,
that's good. We had a lot of fun with that, though.
Sure, I'm sure you did. So moving along, the Nation would disband, and you leave the group a little prior to that, and that would lead the next step we wanted to get on, one that both myself, Steve, and you yourself had mentioned when you told the story about Teddy Long. Maybe your most memorable, or what a lot of people would think your greatest partner of all the great teams you were, would be you and Bradshaw, the Acolytes, and then the APA. Just a real believable ass-kicking team that I think, whether you liked it or not, everybody had to respect.
Absolutely. I would. There's no question that is the best partner. I love Bush to death, and we had a great time together, and we worked very well together. But I think the most click and being the most of all of everything we had in common, it was just so natural. And it just came so instinctive. We did everything almost together, man. We did outdoors things, out of the ring together, fish, hunting, we thought alike in the ring. We didn't have to, too much, tell one another the things that we were going to do. We could look at each other and we could see from the way we were leading one and the other in the ring, what was going to come next. Those are things that you have to have a feel for from your partner, And that's just something that is innate. Either you have that or you don't. And that's just the way it is. Other guys have to talk over that, learn it, teach it to each other. But that came natural with us, And we had the same approach, like I've mentioned before, man, with going into the ring, wanting to give the people the best that we could. And we had the same fire. And that was to get in there, and not only to get in there and just wrestle and perform, but to get in there and give a believable performance. Some of the guys didn't like that. Trust me on this, okay? They didn't like it because it wasn't always fun for some of the guys we were in the ring with. But at the end, it was something that the people wanted to see, because, hey, when we came out of the ring, they knew that they had seen a professional wrestling match at its best, and that's one of the things that I really loved about him. We shared that in common because we were both physical, when it came to being in the ring, wanting to leave everything in there. And him probably more than myself, and he was just unbelievable partner, man. Unbelievable partner. Unbelievable brother of mine. I love him to death.
Sure. Well, again, I think exactly what you touched on, the believability there. A couple things before I pass it over to Steve, and we have just a couple more questions here for you while we're still on the APA. Like you said, that chemistry would come through on camera, and a couple of things I wanted you to touch on from those APA days, if you wouldn't mind, is first off, there were those great backstage, where you guys would be playing cards and sitting around and, on camera on Raw, multiple people that would join you guys in and out. For one part I wanted to ask you, were there any of those moments, those backstage where, you guys having a few and the card playing and things like that you remember most as maybe stick out as your favorite moments from those days? And also, you hear here and there, again, I don't know, obviously, Steve and myself were never in a backstage environment there, but you've heard, speaking to maybe what you were saying about some of the believability, let's call it, in the ring, it seemed like you hear stories every now and then someone might come into the company and maybe, they were new, they were big somewhere else. It seemed like a lot of times those guys, for whatever reason, might wind up in there with the APA. Any truth to that? Was there any you particularly?
Yes, there's a lot of truth to that. Absolutely. There were guys that, that came there from other organizations that, thought that perhaps they just should skip everybody else and just come right in there to the top, and have things right away, the way they want it and not wanting to, you know, I mean, hey, there are rules and things that you have to abide by, you know, when you are, as far as this business goes, you know, and we all have gone through them. I did, and everyone else, and you have to respect those. But when you don't respect those, then, hey, you got, you know, we got a problem. And yes, and so we've had a lot of guys that, you know, that came in with that attitude, you know, and John and I, you know, also will have to be called upon, you know, to, hey, let them know, hey, that's not how it works here, okay? So once they would stick us in the ring with them, not only did the professional part of it be put aside, it got real. So then from that point on, I think they understood that, hey, this is how business is done here. We don't know what you did at the other place, but this is how it's done here. And, yes, we had to do that a couple of times, you know. Right. And then, like when you were mentioning as far as like with the cars and with the cigar smoking, there were a lot of moments, man. Those were probably some of the best moments, you know, that with me being a part of the APA, you know, back teasing a lot of people like Mr. T, Joe C, you know, and these guys and the professional race drivers, the movie stars that we would come in, you know, and give, you know, and just give, you know, just give hell when they were sitting at the poker tables with us, man. That came really natural because we did that outside of the ring. Well, when we went to bars, you know, we actually would go to the bars, and sometimes we would actually get into some fights, you know, because there's always one in the bar that wants to prove himself to his girlfriend that he's a bigger man than you are, and we had to be the APA for real, you know. So things like that happened a lot, you know. So
probably not a smart move if you're that guy and the boyfriend trying to make a name.
Blatantly stupid. I'm going with blatantly stupid.
Yeah, that wasn't the best move for a couple of guys. I can tell you that, man. You know, right? Yeah, and then needless to mention, though, he was, you know, he was lucky that we let him keep his girlfriend. You know, that's right. Depending on how she looked, now I might add that.
Oh boy, I guess all you can say to that is damn.
That's the only thing you can say is damn.
Well, you know, watching the team, the Acolytes, grow from being in the ministry to what they became eventually in the end was certainly a great trip to watch. And I really liked the Acolytes as a team, you and Bradshaw, because of just that rough, ornery, ass-kicking attitude. And it wasn't so much about barbed wire and gimmicks and tables, ladders, and chairs. You guys just went out there and pounded someone.
And that's what I was trying to get across. You know, when I was speaking of it earlier back in the interview, is that hey, at some point you want to be in there and give the people what it is founded on. That is a performance in the ring, professional wrestling. Not known as to being a good guy or a bad guy, but then being just a guy that gets in the ring and gets it done. And that's what we were best known for. That's what we wanted, you know, to happen, okay? That's why the people really liked that tag team and us being together, because they knew that we were going to come out there and we were going to give them what they wanted to see in the ring. Not trying to beg for applause, not trying to get out there and overly do it as a bad guy, but just get out there and just kick some ass in the ring. And that's what we did, period.
Oh, totally. And you have legions of loyal fans for it still to this day. Now, let's talk a little bit about your catchphrase that we just mentioned here earlier, and that's damn. Now, it's reserved for some really special moments on WWE television as of late. And we all know when we see two people standing there and the camera pans back and we see you standing there with them, we all know what's coming, and you have us sitting there in the palm of your hand. So tell us what it's like to be able to use a catchphrase like that, where it came from, and what is some of your most memorable moments using that catchphrase?
Well, you know, actually, that it started, man, whenever, and it was nothing that I had worked on or had tried to make and get across, you know, to being something that was a catchphrase. It was something that I would say, and the first 5 rows of in any arena could hear me if I got hurt or something went wrong inside the ring. They would always hear me say, damn, you know, when something happened or I got a tooth knocked out or something like this, you know, that's what I would always blurt out. And I mean, and it seemed to resonate with people that, you know, and they caught on with them. And then as I would go back to the arenas in different times, they would just started chanting it. Damn, you know, and then after a while, then my partner was like, hey, I think they're talking about what you say when something goes wrong. I said, really? Is that what that is? And then it just caught on with some of the guys behind the scenes, some of the writers, and I think it really caught on when I did the one with John Cena in Chicago that night when he was having a feud, and I can't remember who it was, and I simply came out, and I think it was Booker T, perhaps it was, and I simply came out, looked at Booker, and just said, damn, and from there, it just caught fire and went from there, man, and the reason I think that it does is that who doesn't have to say that at some point during the day if they're stuck in traffic or somebody does something to you to make your day miserable? I mean, whether you're in line or somebody just comes up to you, does something to irritate you. I mean, what's the first word that comes to your mind? Damn. You know? You know? And I think that's why it really, catches on with people so much. And then, plus, being the way I see it, just, makes it put the emphasis on a little bit more. But if I'd known that 33 years ago, man, or so, that I could just get in the ring and say that, I wouldn't have suffered all these broken bones and pulled muscles.
Right. Could have kept it simple into one word.
Right. But, hey, what a way, though, to wind down your career, still have some fun, still be around the guys, And so, hey, look, it's a lot of fun, man. I'm really very, very, very lucky. Yeah,
and again, it's great. I mean, even recently on the Old School Raw, when we had the pleasure, Steve lives down in the Atlanta area. We had the pleasure last week of going over to Dallas Page's house, him and Scott Hall, and he took us through the workout, the yoga over there, and
wow.
Yeah, it was a real cool experience. And, Dallas, that last segment on the Old School Raw with Dallas and Booker T back there, and then it panned out and you were there. It certainly still works, my friend.
Right. Hey, well, that's a workout then. If you've been there with Dallas, I mean, hey, it's not easy.
No, it ain't.
He's a real deal.
Believe me, he's for real now, Yeah, so you go in there thinking that it's a joke, brother. You're in for a surprise.
You try learning a little bit, to go in there not completely blind to it. It's a whole different story when he's nose to nose with us, barking us through it.
Oh, yeah, man, but hey, it's worked wonders for him and a lot of other guys. Good for him, man. God bless.
Absolutely. Well, Ron, we have one more question, and then Steve, I'm going to send it back to Steve to wrap you up here. We're certainly looking forward to as well seeing you up here in my neck of the woods, Clayton, North Carolina, on March 29th as part of the Ivan Koloff tournament.
And I'm really looking forward to this. And let me just say this, and this is to all of the people, that will be listening within your listening audience, that these times like this is very, very special for me, because normally when I was traveling on the road, and sometimes back then we were doing 2 shows a day, I didn't have time to stop and talk and chat with people, and they would often want to ask me questions about things, different things or different matches. These are times that are special to me, because I get to now have a one-on-one conversation with a lot of people and to answer a lot of those questions that they wanted to ask me throughout the years. And most of all, it's a great opportunity for me to say thank you to all of the wonderful support that I have gotten over the years, man. It is something that I'm looking forward to doing at the Clayton Fitness Center in Clayton, North Carolina. I am really looking forward to this. This is going to be a really good occasion, as well as seeing some of my old friends, Kevin Sullivan. I mean, my God, Shane Douglas, and then we've got, who else? My God, Ivan Koloff. I mean, Ricky Morton. It's just going to be a lot of fun. This is going to take me back into some of the beginning stages when I first started. This is going to be the atmosphere that I started in. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there. Yeah,
and I can speak for the area. There's a lot of buzz about that event, and I know the fans are real excited to see you firsthand. And you were saying it's a good chance to thank the fans. The last question before I send it back to Steve here that I had was kind of a thank you that was given to you not too long ago when you were recognized by your peers and honored to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. Like you said, your great friend and your brother, as you called him, John Bradshaw Layfield, got to induct you, and in what's pretty much the biggest honor that company can afford to any past performers. Just wanted to know first how that came about, how your approach about being inducted, what it meant to you to have your brother, as you called him, Bradshaw, share that moment with you, and then kind of put you on the hot seat a little bit as a Hall of Famer. Anyone that comes to mind that you maybe worked with over the years at any point that you would think is deserving of going in as well and joining you there in the Hall of Fame?
Well, let me answer the last one first, and that's going to obviously be, my brother, as I do say, and at some point he definitely has to go in there, whether it be in the tag team or whether it be in the singles. I mean, he's world champion there. He's been in numerous tag team champions with myself, and that's my partner, Bradshaw, and then when you speak of the Hall of Fame, I mean, no one thinks about that, whether it be in football, as I did not think about that, because that's just something that you don't even envision yourself being a part of or inducted into. I was an All-American at Florida State, and I was like, my God, I can't believe that I was selected to be an All-American. Okay, so I was content with that, like, hey, I really did good, and I'm proud of myself. But when I got that call for that, it was overwhelming. I could not believe it, and that is exactly the way I felt when I got this call to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. It takes you back to the beginning, when you first start, with the guys that you had always looked on TV and admired, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Kevin Sullivan, all of these guys that comes to mind, and you're like, I can't believe that I'm in the same class with these guys here and to be thought of forever in this business with them. It's just unbelievable. It's unimaginable. And, I mean, it's something that, hey, you just have to still step back and say, is this real? And, and I'm just nothing but honored, to just be a part of it. That's simply all I can say.
Definitely a great moment and a really, really good induction speech by JBL. And I think the Scum and myself would definitely agree with you that Bradshaw needs to be in the Hall of Fame. His whole body of work was fantastic. Multi-time champion. Heck, he's teamed with you. He's even teamed with Barry Windham in the WWE, so it's not without a shadow of a doubt that he belongs in the Hall of Fame.
That's right. And a lot of people don't remember that or didn't know that, the different stages that he's gone through. So, his contribution has been immense, And, I mean, when the intro, who more that I could have wanted to be there or to be there for me than to give me that to be accepted into the Hall of Fame than him. I mean, he when you're giving speeches like that, it's from the heart. So it's not rehearsed. So that's what meant so much to me, because I knew he meant what he said. And that's what means the most to me.
That is fantastic. Well, Ron, we're rapidly running out of time here, so we wanted to get to our final segment, and that is the name association part of the show. Thanks once again for joining us here at WGD Weekly. Former world champion Ron Simmons joining us now. Let's get to the name association. Just a couple of guys that we just didn't have quite enough time to get too in-depth with about your career, but certainly made an impact in your career. Let's go way back before the Doom days for our first guy, and let's talk a little bit about the Junkyard Dog.
Oh, I mean, hey, you have to go back and take your hat off to him. I mean, myself, having been the first African-American world champion, you got to go back with him being groundbreaking and just being one of the first African-Americans in this business, okay, period. So, therefore, you've got to look at him and say that groundbreaking first for me to be able to get started in this business, okay? And then I had the way I learned a lot from him as far as when it came to charisma, how to treat people out of the ring is what I really admired him for mostly. I've watched him, man, just be the nicest guy out of the ring that anyone could possibly be. And the way the fans adored him the most for what he did and his contribution outside the ring. That's what I mostly admired about him.
Oh, yeah, JYD, one of the favorites from back in the day of Steve and the Scums for sure. Let's talk about a guy that has a 30-year career and a 20-plus year undefeated streak at WrestleMania, a person that you worked with in WWE in the ministry, amongst many other spots and programs, The Undertaker.
Oh, great guy, man. I mean, hey, nothing but, once again, admiration for him, man. I mean, here's a guy that I've watched that has been in unbelievable pain, and I know, all right? But yet, he goes out there, gives the people 1,000% every time I've seen him in the ring, okay? Period. Shows up to do business every night. I don't think I've ever seen a day when he's missed, as we want to call it, a shot, and I've never seen him complain about anything. He's a guy that I always looked up to and said, now that's a guy that I would have loved to have played football with right there, okay? That's the kind of person that he is. I mean, nothing but admiration for him, period.
If there's ever a thing as a first ballot Hall of Famer in the WWE Hall of Fame, I'd say The Undertaker would win that award. Let's talk about another guy that was super huge and a Hall of Famer as well, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh, well, hey, Stone Cold speaks for itself. I mean, we basically kind of started together down in a little bit down in the formative stages of NWA, WCW times there, and all the talent on the planet. I mean, just charisma, man, that's unbelievable. And the thing that comes so natural for him is that he is that character. That's why the people, could just take him in, because that's him 24/7. I mean, there's no acting, no facade with him. That is Stone Cold Steve Austin. And what you see is just exactly what you're going to get. I mean, unbelievable in the ring. I mean, unbelievable on the microphone, and just the charisma that he has. It's just unspeakable. I mean, everybody would want to have the charisma that he has once he steps into the arena, man. And needless to mention what he does inside the ring. So, and out the ring, great guy, good friend of mine.
Still a household name, and even better than us at the podcasting game, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Well, let's talk about one more person, and I don't know why I don't ask about this guy very much, but either way, while we have you here, let's tell us what your experiences were working for Vince McMahon.
Absolutely fantastic, man. And I've worked for a lot of promoters and a lot of owners of the company. By far the best. And I'm not just saying that just trying to kiss his butt or nothing like that. If it wasn't true, I'd say it. But absolutely the best. I mean, other guys might have different opinions, but for me, and I pride myself on being a man's man, and try to tell it like it is, okay? He was a straight shooter with me in every way, when it came to business matters, and told me things, that, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is how we want to do this, and if it doesn't work, then, hey, that's just the way it's going to go down. But, hey, from the beginning, he's been almost just in every way fair and honest with me, and, hey, he's somebody that I could, say that I have no beef with, and I can just honestly say that I can walk away from that company not saying that, look, I've been treated in any different way, fashion, form than anyone else. Great man to work for, and always got the time for you, no matter what your problem might be, in the ring or out. That's what I really liked about him, to take the time to care for the people outside of the ring, about your personal life, your family, and you can't ask for any more than that. Good man, good family, great kids, great wife. Everybody was just a fantastic. The whole family were very good to me, at least I can say that.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. Someone who's worked that extensively with Vince, and great to hear your take on guys like The Undertaker, Stone Cold, JYD, certainly a trailblazer as well, like you said, much like yourself. That brings us to the end of our time here this week on WGD Weekly. WWE Hall of Famer Ron Simmons, we really can't thank you enough. What a thrill it was as longtime fans of yours from way back in the NWA days right up through hearing some of those great stories about you and Bradshaw. Again, I still have a tough time getting that image of Teddy Long at the side of the road telling you guys to get out of the car out of my head, but
here in the snow.
We we can't thank you enough for being here, Ron. I mean, what a great trip down memory lane through your unbelievable career. We're looking forward to seeing you on the 29th of March. We urge all of our listeners that are in the area, North Carolina fans or the surrounding area, that's March 29th at Clayton Fitness, Clayton, North Carolina, the Ivan Koloff Tag Team Tournament. Come on out, say hello like Ron said. You want to meet and have some questions with him. We can't wait to see you there. And again, we just can't thank you enough, Ron.
Well, I've had a lot of fun, and it's been a really, really good talking to you guys, man, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone at the Clayton Fitness Center in Clayton, North Carolina, man. It's going to really be a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
This is Larry Zabisco, wrestling's living legend, and you're listening to WGD Weekly Steve and the Scum.
All right, Steve. Well, that was once again, WGD Weekly delivers the goods. WWE Hall of Famer Ron Simmons, man who has done it all. Former WCW World Champion. Really cool to hear his take on that emotional night in Baltimore when he was handed that honor from Vader. Great to hear the stories with him and Bradshaw, Butch Reed back in the Doom days. What did you think, my friend?
No, I thought it was a stand-up interview from a stand-up guy and one tough individual. And, you don't have to look too far back to see, the man's in 2 Hall of Fames. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame, of course, WWE Hall of Famer. And, before you even get into his Hall of Fame wrestling career, you can go back and see what he did on the football field and how he made Florida State a relevant football team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Just an amazing athlete overall, man.
Absolutely. I thought it was real interesting. Anyone who's played, obviously I never played at any type of level that Ron Simmons did, collegiately or anything like that, but anyone who grew up in athletics and played different sports, I thought it was real cool the take that he had on working with Lex Luger, when he talked about how him and Lex played football together and there was always that competitive, friendship, but, you wanted to be better to take it to that next level and how that carried over to their days in WCW when they would square off. And really cool take I thought that he had there on his, stemming from those football days and that athletic competitiveness that anyone, could recognize that has been there, and your teammates or your friends bring you to that next level. Pretty cool stuff there to hear out of Ron.
Oh, absolutely. A couple of powerhouse teams that he's well known for, Doom and Acolytes, 2 of the best bruiser tag teams ever. But, it was also really interesting to hear him talk about, and very candidly about, going out and taking care of some business when needed with Bradshaw, to some newcomers that really weren't giving the locker room or the company their fair share of respect, and made sure they beat it into him. So I thought that was really cool to have a candid story told like that by Ron Simmons about, some guys that came in and thought they deserved more than they should have. And they, took care of that real quickly.
Yeah. I think that would happen on occasion when somebody possibly came in and was under the misunderstanding that just because of their past laurels that they were quote unquote over.
Oh boy, I wonder who that is.
I'm not sure, but give me 1 second here before I put my head down and smile and start shaking some hands.
Yeah, did you take your top hat off out of respect?
Actually, Steve, I'm sorry to tell you this, but come home. I'm home.
Of course, if you don't know what we're talking about, go back to our first season and listen to the interview with Buff the Stuff Bagwell, and they'll clue you in as to the inside jokes here we're referring to. But anyway, Scum, you've had the network now, and when I say the network, I mean the network, WWE Network. You've had it for a little while now. I've had it for a little while now. I absolutely love it. What's your overall opinion, man? I think it's real easy to use, and there's a lot of stuff on it.
Yeah, it's great stuff, Steve. Like you said, from my days of my childhood, I was always someone who would set the recorder. Back in the days when I was younger, I have all the old, Saturday Night Main Events when it was late. I was a kid and couldn't stay up and tape them. Days of working through the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars where I have years of, Nitro and Raw and stuff on VHS and a lot of the pay-per-views from those days. But again, you and I were talking about this earlier. It's a pain in the ass to go through boxes and boxes of plastic and find one thing you're looking for when you can just hit a button, slide over, and click, and bang, there you have every pay-per-view that ever happened. I'm sure eventually the old TV shows and everything, will be on there. Again, don't get me wrong, there's certain classic moments that, if for some reason they don't surface on there, I'm happy to, never opposed to dusting off the old VCR, but why do it if it's $10 a month to sit there? I've gotten my $10 a month worth in the first week that I've had the thing.
Oh,
so
yeah,
I certainly can't complain,
Yeah, right. I'll tell you what, I agree with you 100%. I certainly got my money back already. The fact that you get all the pay-per-views is great. I like the search engine. The search engine is really cool. Actually, just type in a guy's name, or a match or a match type, and usually something comes up, you just click on it. I mean, I'm sure you're not going to hit a home run every time, but it's pretty good. Like, I looked up 7 or 8 different characters the other day. They all came up, so that was really neat. I like the ease of access, and I like the mobility. You could pretty much put it on everything. I got the app on my phone, and so I go pick up my kid the other day from school, and I just popped in a round table and ran it through my audio. And, you don't need to watch it. There's a lot of narrative stuff on there, too, so why not? You know what I mean? Use it while you can. So I sat there and listened to a Legends Roundtable about factions while I was going to pick up my kid at school, man. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I didn't know where you were going there. You had me worried for a second when you said, yeah, I was actually heading and picking up my boy from school. I thought instead of that you were listening to the network, I thought you were picking up my boy from school, and damned if Sullivan and Lewin didn't jump out with that goddamn spike.
Monster 83 the other day. That was great.
They were scattering across the playground, as Gary Hart was reaching into his boot.
Yeah, they were scattering like the Japanese out of an elevator when Andre stepped in.
Yeah, scattering like the Japanese when Jeet Singh pulls the sword out.
Yeah, like Tiger Jeet Singh running around chasing people down with a frickin' scimitar.
Oh, boy. See, not only the WWE Network, but you want to take a walk down memory lane. Like I always say, you never know what you're going to learn or be reminded of here each week on WGD Weekly with Steven the Scum. A proverbial history lesson in the annals of professional wrestling once a week, baby.
That's right, man. Well, I'll tell you guys what. We're going to call it an early show. We gave you a really long one last week, so we're going to cut this one a little bit short. Scum, take us home. Tell us a little bit about what is happening up there in Clayton, North Carolina. Let everybody know what's up. And I got to fix my mic. Something that's going on here. I don't know what's happening. Get some help down here. Scum, take it home, man.
All right. Well, Steve, like I always say, people might have thought I was just some kind of tagline or just some kind of catchphrase, let's say, but I've been saying it from the beginning. The WGD Weekly, Steve the Scum, the latest sensation that's sweeping the wrestling radio and internet wrestling community nation, baby. And, it's hard to deny with the growth and with the people that we got lined up and coming at you and all these great guests. We'd like to thank Ron Simmons, WWE Hall of Famer, for being here tonight. Like we popped earlier in the show, and like Ron had talked about, he's looking forward to. And if you're in the North Carolina vicinity, get on out March 29th. That's a Saturday evening to Clayton Fitness in Clayton, North Carolina. Ron will be there along with Kevin Sullivan, Shane Douglas, Thunderbolt Patterson will be making an appearance, Ricky Morton, and that's all part of the Ivan Koloff Tag Team Tournament, the NCWA. The guys that great talent will be on display there as part of the tag tournament too. Also during the day that day, you'll be able to check out a very unique opportunity from 2 to 4 at Clayton Fitness when Shane Douglas and Kevin Sullivan will be hosting a Q&A, an up-close and personal seminar, autographs, pictures, coming out and meet them in a closed setting. We'll be excited to be there. We'll be excited to meet you. I'm sure you'll be much more interested in meeting that great name talent. But come on out and see us on March 29th in Clayton, North Carolina. Bring the whole family. It should be a good time. Outside of that, that's all I got too, Steve. Thanks again to Ron Simmons. And thank you, Scum Nation, for tuning in and making us the latest sensation, baby. And other than that, we'll see you next week, people.